All right, so there was a rumor floating around the office, driven by. There's a lot of news coming out of London, which is where, Chuck?
It would be across the pond.
Yes, exactly. There's some interesting rumors floating around that maybe two London-based oil and gas companies are going to merge. Now, what's funny about that rumor, I was like, oh, that's ridiculous. But there is an article.
There's actually an article.
There's an article not about it, but there's an article in the Wall Street Journal that says these oil giants don't seem tempted by merger mania. Shell and BP say they aren't feeling pressure to bulk up after ExxonMobil and Chevron's multi-billion-dollar deal.
Hey, guys, I'm sorry to do this. I actually have a board call right now. BDE, good seeing you. You got these three guys tonight.
What the hell?
Are you going to be back?
Was that
maybe.
I'm not moving. It's like the missing man formation.
What just happened?
Chuck didn't know he had a board meeting. That's how good of a board member Chuck is.
Or someone from London, GF, or someone's like, you better stop talking about those rumors.
He gets a text from the CIA.
All right, where's this article?
It's like, delete this podcast immediately.
Where's this article?
That was in Wall Street Journal.
But it was
the
an actual
rumor
article?
came from a high-ranking consultant, which means they're probably trying to pitch a rumor to get those two companies to hire them, is what I think it is.
Oh, you think that they're incentivized some consulting firm? Like, oh, y'all should.
See, yeah, people are talking about it on the street.
Yeah, let's make it happen. I don't think, I don't know, the Exxon and Pioneer deal, how long was that rumored for? That's like rumored for a long time.
So I remember a one-on-one meeting with Scott Sheffield at an investor conference back in 2012, bringing up the subject
10 years ago.
No, but those decks have always been when Shell bought BG. It was the funny thing is that acquisition has been sort of on the shelf for decades as they were looking for the right price, right timing. Those consultants are always pitching great acquisitions.
Yeah,
that's probably been a deck that's you just refresh every few months.
You know what's funny is when COVID first started happening at the beginning of 2020, some of my former business partners were all McKinsey, and they had like this internal McKinsey call, and that was the first time I started hearing the term new normal. And all it was McKinsey talking about how this new normal. I was like, how can you guys not see that this is McKinsey driven?
They pitched
and
it.
McKinsey sees fucking dollar signs for the new normal and how they're going to help companies transform into the new normal.
Except nobody could be on site.
Yeah. Well,
that's right.
The new normal actually just kind of looks like the old normal. Like shit didn't change. But I just thought it was funny. Like these consultants will drive a narrative around problems so that they can charge to solve those problems.
No doubt. Hey, by the way, we haven't been on air since Fuze. Incredible show.
Yeah, we had a week break.
How was Fuze, man?
It's good. It was cold. Like
uncanny.
I don't think that's going to change. Something about the floor sweating if it drops under 70 degrees.
Oh, I was talking about inside.
Musical.
I was talking about outside, but inside's cold too.
I was freezing outside.
We also had some thermodynamics going on here where it was like cold outside and made it even colder on the inside.
Yeah. I was out there.
Kurt goes out there
with those EV chargers.
Hawking EV chargers.
Hey, dude, I hawk whatever as long as it, I create value. Right?
Yeah.
I pulled the Raptor up and asked for, where I plug it in.
The Raptor doesn't work on EV charging, bro.
But
I did see, this is hilarious. I see a Tesla X running around town and their license plate says net zero. I laughed so hard when I saw that.
Net zero.
Mm-hmm.
I went on a ruck with
zero.
Not zero.
I went on a ruck with one of my friends. He's in the special forces, and afterwards he's like, "Do you want to go to Panera?" I was like,
"Wait,
that's what bros in the special forces do. We go hit a 5-mile ruck and then hit up Panera.
Let's go hit Panera for a bread ball or what?"
Yeah, I didn't have anything. And anyways, one of his friends met us up there, and she has a Tesla and is parked outside. This is over at La Centera, and her license plate on her Tesla says no gas. And like she's like so proud of it. And it took everything I had to like not go off in this Panera bread about the virtue signaling. Like, I don't know, like when you get a Tesla, is it like mandatory that you get a vanity license plate? That
I think it is mandated. And
like,
I think
there's a high percentage.
Tesla must.
And I've
sort of
seen
like,
a high percentage that tout the alleged hydrocarbon free aspect of the Tesla.
Yeah.
Forgetting the.
Don't get me wrong, I love Teslas, but if I get one,
Oh, yeah.
I'm just having a normal license plate, and I'm definitely not going to have one that's like.
Dude, speaking of,
free.
I've never driven a Tesla, but I had to drive one of your boys' Teslas as we were getting the Teslas over to the charging infrastructure.
Oh yeah.
And it had some like spaceship steering wheel. It was kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
It didn't have the round
wheel. Yeah.
It was like a joystick.
With like an F1, like
It did look.
Yeah.
It looked like an F1
Yeah.
steering wheel.
After your frustrations.
Do they come like that?
I don't know, dude. You know who we're talking about. He everything he has is sort of like the
Yeah.
coolest of the cool.
Yeah.
His truck is even. He has like one of those trucks.
He's got
that
a
are
Shelby.
the Shelby. You know the Shelby truck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like totally. You couldn't get any more things on it. From Tesla net zero to Shelby truck. That's probably what 2 gallons.
That's how Chuck
the
used.
mile.
That's how. I don't know if you knew this about Chuck, but when I first met Chuck, he had 2 vehicles. He had a Tesla X and an old Hummer H2. He said it depended on which LPs he was with, which one he would drive. So, anyway, speaking of driving, did you guys see this 18-wheeler that got stolen in Houston?
Amen.
Couple days ago.
The joyride and the high speed chase.
Yes. So I'll have Jacob pull this up and show this graphic. Someone tracked the helicopter that was chasing it. So you got flight record, and it shows it like starting off in downtown Houston and then goes up to the north side, like through the heights, then comes down I-10. The first video I saw of it was right here outside of our office, like 30 cop cars chasing it. I don't know if the suspension was shot or if they like blown some tires on this. Like the truck's like bouncing up and down, like coming down I-10.
It had a bed on it, or
Yeah, a trailer.
had
Yeah,
a trailer?
Yeah, had a trailer. And anyways, he goes out to Katy. Like actually came down into Katy, not far from my house, and came back up and lasted for hours. And
Why don't they just stop in front of it?
I don't understand why they weren't able to, blow out the tires and stop them. But yeah, anyways, that was the whole thing. I'm surprised y'all didn't see videos. Like it's been going viral all over the internet.
I'm gonna watch it afterwards.
Yeah.
We should post that too.
But yeah, someone posted a video of the helicopter flight path, and you can just see it chasing this truck all over town.
They couldn't put out the. I guess they don't make the strips that'll
Yeah, I don't know.
handle an 18-wheeler.
Well, yeah, so it's kind of. I mean, really,
Yeah,
all
good
you have
point.
to do. Well, all you have to do is take out the front tires of the actual truck. You know, you don't gotta go take out all. 18
But maybe
tires of
the trailer would spin
jackknife and
jackknife, and then they'd be responsible.
Yeah,
for cleaning
but it
it
was
up.
actually going like I saw videos of them like going down the opposite side of I-10.
Ooh.
And, like cars like having to pull over and like a
Dude.
big police chase coming the opposite way.
You better be
so-
paying attention.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a a lot of people on I-10 aren't paying attention.
Nope.
So yeah, but anyways, that was kind of it's kind of funny. I always appreciate when I see videos and I'm like, oh shit, that's right outside our.
Would the auto drive feature recognize that?
I don't know.
net zero.
Yes.
Net zero, man.
It'll be funny when we have autonomous trucks if we do. I don't know if you'll be able to hijack them anymore. Did y'all see the guy that stole the front end loader out in Odessa?
I did. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
No, I missed that one.
Oh, dude, how'd you miss this? We're gonna go down this. Now that we're on this topic, we're gonna go down this. But like a few weeks ago, out in Midland and Odessa, and it's in between. There's this Wagner Noel Performance Center, and I guess there's a Christian band playing. I think it's Casting Crowns or something like that. And the guy couldn't get a ticket, and he goes and steals a front end forklift, one of those big John Deere front end loaders, and just starts going on a joyride. And
Was he
there's all
trying
these-
to break into the concert?
I don't know what he was trying to do. I mean, I don't know if there's a lot of thought, but anyways, the cops are just chasing him. You see all these videos, and all of a sudden, cops just unload on him, put like 160 bullets into the cab and kill his ass.
Dude, they did that?
Yeah, they shot him and killed him because he's like trying to. You gotta think, man. The articulation of a front end loader, like they can
Yeah.
turn really quick. So he could like turn really quick and was like aiming it at cop cars, and they're trying to like get away from
That
him.
would,
And
it'd probably hurt.
anyways, they're
hit
just
that one.
my favorite was like I posted the video on Twitter, and the commentary, there's like a lady shooting the video, and the guy that's next to her is just very well versed on front end loaders. I was like, Midland, Odessa is like the only place where you just have some
Man on the
bystander.
street, man on the street, yeah.
He's like, what they need to do is take the car and put it in the middle of, and he was right. Like if you hit it like in the middle of
How
the
many
front end
guys
loader.
can drive front loaders per capita in Midlands? Probably there's more people that can drive front loaders in Midland than everyone in Houston.
I can.
I can too, by the way. I've
Can
done
you?
it.
Well, you know what's funny is like at our
Oh,
events,
yeah.
like Fuze,
I
like
put
we
it
have
in a
these like
gravel road.
we have
You're
like these
welcome.
little telescoping forklifts, and everyone like I'll get on. They're like, do you know how to drive a forklift? I'm doing. I fucking drove massive front end loaders loading 8-inch drill collars on our rig. Like my team doesn't respect my blue collar background.
Dude, and I used to drive like bales of hay around, and those things like your tractor will flip and kill you if you're not
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
if you're not smart.
No, I could get 8-inch collars, drill collars on my forklift, and then 9
Ooh.
would make me start doing wheelies on the front tires. So I'd always do that, and like I'd be out there in the yard, just like ass end of the front end loader up in the air.
Who said
I was
manual labor
cutting
isn't
rebar
fun,
on-
man?
I drove forklift too, but it was stacking tubing or unloading tubing.
Dude, look at it, man. There's not a podcast in the world that has more forklift operators than Big Digital Energy.
We were cutting rebar with a torch, and they let the amateur do it, and I had the rebar too close to the fork blade, and almost cut into it. And somebody
yeah.
kind of grab it out of my hand.
What I love about it's when I
It would
first
compromise the integrity of the fork blade when you do a lift.
and I'm sure this applies to all you guys. Like when I first got on a tractor and someone's like, "Let me show you how to use it." I'm like, "No, I got this. I want to hit every button, every little like
Yeah.
joystick. I want to do it myself and figure it out."
You ever drive an airboat?
No, it goes opposite, right? It's kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
You got two handles.
Yeah, and there are no brakes.
Oh man,
No brakes and no
I've
reverse.
never driven an airboat. We should do that as a trip sometime. BDE
That'd be
offsite on the airboat. So
That's
yeah,
why so many people kill each other on jet skis is because it doesn't stop. And
Right.
You head at your friend. I've done that in college. I headed my friend and I was gonna like power turn. I decided just to cut the gas and it went right into his back. He went boom, and I launched him. And
They're all laughing about it. His friend's paralyzed.
no, if he was paralyzed, I wouldn't laugh about it. But it was funny when he got out of the water and he got back on his jet ski. I was like, sorry, bro.
All right, there's energy news in here somewhere.
Yeah. Well,
Everything we've talked about runs on
Well,
fuel. So.
let me first
yeah, we can
do a plug.
What I love about energy is you can tie it back to energy.
I want to do a
Somehow.
plug for Collide Pro because we were on the show 2 weeks ago talking about our prognostications on oil prices at the end of the year. And one of our listeners told me over the weekend that we actually did this at the beginning of the year, and we should have pulled up the data from the beginning of the year of what our guesses were of what oil prices would do at the end of the year. So why Collide Pro is perfect for that, right?
Yeah. Did you go search it?
No, not yet. But
Oh, you put me on the spot like I got to do it right
He's
now.
not instrument rated yet.
I know how to do a front loader, but let me get on Collide Pro and get that thing going.
No, we
But
can
I
go
will.
find it. No, yeah, we made those predictions, but we haven't kept up with them, so we should go look it up. You know what's funny? I was trying to figure out the name of this nut because me and
There was a guy at Fuze that was a nut, man.
yeah,
He knows who he is. He's probably
Yeah.
a listener.
we won't talk about
You're
it.
a nut,
we,
bro.
won't, we won't talk about it.
Let's not time travel back.
Gravity, dude.
But last year's Fuse, me and Chuck did this like long 12-hour telethon before Fuse. Like we literally sat in the recording studio for
Dude,
12
I'm in,
hours,
man.
just live streaming. Anyways, we ate crickets and we ate these like the world's hottest nut, which is called a death nut, but I couldn't remember the name.
It's a nut that's hot.
Yeah, and I couldn't remember the name of the nut, and so I got on Collide Pro and I searched nut, and boom, brought it up like 2 seconds. I was like, oh, it's death nuts.
All right, I'm gonna
The
get
moment you were saying it within 12 hours of video,
Yeah.
you were able to go right to that.
Yeah, right to that.
So we could go
So we
back.
can go on Collide Pro right now, and I can look up Big Digital Energy oil prediction. Boom, it'll pull it up. Maybe I'll do a demo of that later and show it. But yeah, I remember we made all of our predictions, but I have no idea. I don't even remember what we said. So it'll be interesting.
Well, there's
to
an
see.
easy way to go put that all back together.
I don't think anything's changed though. So
And
I
the
don't think
good
it-
news is I'm talking to people after Fuse have been reaching out wanting to sponsor our show because of Collide and what we're talking about. So We might even have more data.
You know what's funny to
sources.
me at Fuze? I was sitting there with Kirk. This happened like 2 or 3 times. I'm sitting there and someone would walk up to me and I know him and we start talking. Kirk be like, yeah, I'm Kirk. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I watch your show. And Kirk's just like, his face every time someone said that, he was like, oh shit, people actually do listen to this. He's like, I got to watch it.
And I'm not
Kirk's-
as like threatening. Like Mark's this tall, big dude that people are scared of. So they would go to me because I'm
Dude,
like
I meant
this
to get a
guy.
picture. I had Mark and Brett Pennington in the same room together, and they look like it's not like they look a lot alike, but they just look similar because they're both the same like height. Both white dudes with gray like goatees, and so y'all could pass for each other. Actually, someone at Opportune, we were doing the speaking thing, me and Brett, and someone walked up to me. They're like, "Man, I thought that was Mark Meyer up there." We should get him to come sub in for you someday for BDE and see if anyone notices. But anyways, I did see some interesting stuff happening down in Panama. Haven't even seen this. Is what's crazy about the internet is I didn't even see this on the news. I've just seen this from a friend that I followed for a long time on Twitter, and he lives down in Panama. But anyways, big protests happening down there, protesting a copper mine. And when I say big protests, I mean, he makes it sound like the country's shut down. Like you can't drive anywhere, you can't get anywhere. I mean, it's a national thing. And so big deal. But then he had posted, he said that black market 91 gasoline in the Chiriquí province of Panama is going for $13 a gallon, which is just crazy. What the fuck is Chuck doing behind me?
Shark Dance.
I mean, clearly Chuck gave so much advice on this board call. He's back.
They kicked me off.
Chuck's on a board call for 10 minutes. And
Shouldn't
like,
you be on BDE
yeah,
right
go
now?
back to doing your podcast, Chuck. So we got Chuck back with us. But yeah, so apparently $13 a gallon for black market gasoline there, which kind of implies that there's a gasoline shortage. And I tweeted out that we really take it for granted in the United States being able to not only have affordable gasoline, but just readily available access to gasoline as well.
And this is right on the cusp of, I don't know if you've seen, the IEA has another what's next, whatever you want to call it, report focusing on Latin America and the energy transition with respect to, you know, the overall kind of net zero platform that they've used for the last couple of years now. So be interesting to see.
You know what's interesting about Latin America and quote unquote energy transition is that there's so many, you know, 2-stroke gasoline bicycles down there.
Yep.
And that's such an easy thing to electrify, right? I mean, some like these, you know, it's funny because even like people I know that are like super anti-EVs, they have electric bikes. Like everyone loves them. They're fun as hell to ride around. And so I could see, and these little 2-stroke, 4-stroke motors are actually terrible when it comes to
Emissions.
And so I actually think that that's a pretty interesting aspect of energy transition, is replacing all these gasoline powered bicycles with.
So you got to step back and take a look at the grid and reliability in those
It's also true.
places. So
Yeah. You know, it's like we'd interviewed someone down in Latin America a couple weeks ago. And after we got off the call, I told Sydney, I was like, hey, did you notice how all the lights were off? It's like they don't have power right now. And like right there, I was like, that's how much we take it for granted of being able to turn on the lights. And
I mean, it's an amazing engineering achievement that we can have power running in the United States 99.8% of the time.
yeah.
And we're pissed off about the 0.2%, you know.
Yeah, we think the world.
that's right.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing achievement. With all these moving pieces,
Mhm.
to have a consistent current is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, like everyone just likes to shit on ERCOT and utilities, but if you actually think about it, it's pretty amazing
Yeah.
what we
And-
have here.
And the other thing about ERCOT, as I always say, it's a leading indicator. It happens 2 years early on ERCOT versus all
This
the
is
other
true.
regions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
MISO coming at you.
Yeah, John Arnold spoke at Fuze and had some really interesting slides in his presentation. You know, just kind of highlighting, you know, what they're doing with Grid United is building transmission lines that cross the seams of the different parts of the country. And anyways, it's interesting to see like he had one that laid out, hey, this is where the majority of solar power comes from, wind power. These are how the grid is segmented across the United States. This is where all the power plants are. But there's just a lot of moving parts, and getting all of that to communicate is, a feat in itself. So,
because I had Campbell Faulkner on Chuck Job, and we talked about interconnecting ERCOT to the east and to the west. And his take was just engineering wise, it's too difficult a challenge, too costly a challenge to be worth it. So I'd love to be able to get Campbell and John Arnold, who's, brilliant and all that good stuff, to actually have a discussion about it, just to see. Because we got 20 minutes at Fuze with John Arnold, and I'm sure he's dug into the cost, the engineering requirements, absolutely, and all. And so I think that would be fascinating, because I think what he was saying is we need to go outside the grid. Wasn't he basically saying that I'm going to connect solar here or over here directly without necessarily interconnecting? Well, but he didn't get that granular just because he didn't have the time.
Yeah, I think what he was getting at too is, he had that pricing map that showed like hotspots of,
which we can pull that up into the show, right?
Yeah. We have that presentation, so Jacob can pull up these slides. But yeah, he had this one that was a pricing slide that showed price among these transmission lines compared to the normalized price across the U.S. And there's very clearly some places where energy transmission is just, the cost of energy is more expensive due to lack of transmission. And so it sounds like with Grid United, they're trying to go in there with 4 or 5 projects to I took it as interconnecting across the seams of these.
Because solar price goes negative in California potentially at some points during the day. That'd be great to have at nighttime in Texas.
Wind,
and wind picks up at night in Texas.
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting aspect of it in terms of transmission. But yeah, this whole thing with what's happening in Panama, I think it's interesting because a couple of weeks ago we were talking about copper shortages. Actually, someone had like a trivia question on it, right? Was that you?
That was me.
Yeah.
You nailed it. I mean, Mark, you can get nothing past Mark.
No, Mark. I was over here. I guess like lithium or something.
When the aristocracy from across the pond, whenever they're in town, they're like, "Where's the smart one on the BDE show? Where's Mark?"
Where's Mark at?
I'm like, thanks.
And you know what's even worse about this? I get that like Mark's smarter than I am, so I can live with that. Kirk, you got questioned on your fashion sense being worse than Mark, right? I mean, that Mark outshined you fashion-wise.
That hurt. That hurt a lot. And then I went and did a wardrobe change, and that person that questioned me left before I could be like, look at me now.
Look at me now. Send me pictures. I'll make sure she sees
So I came up with this, idea for this copper shortage, and I shipped it on Twitter, and I was actually a little disappointed. It only got 50 likes on Twitter, but said I designed a solution to solve America's copper shortage. We'll just launch Oklahoma meth heads into China for covert stripping operations, and I'll have Jacob put this up on the video. But yeah,
and can we get the Cajun? I meant to tweet back. Can we get the Cajun Navy to pick them up and bring them back with the copper?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a whole operation here. What's funny is I used Dolly to generate that image, and I was like, I need a military truck shooting missiles, but instead of missiles, it's Oklahoma meth heads. And I refused to do it because I said I was being derogatory to a group of people. And so the way I got around it was, I need a military truck shooting missiles, but instead of missiles, it's cowboys with no teeth from Oklahoma. And that's how I generated it. So, a little disappointed that.
Well, I mean, speaking of cowboys with teeth, though, Oklahoma State, the Battle of Bedlam, that was a big win.
That was a good transition. A&M, yeah.
I didn't.
Shout out to Wampum.
Yeah, I saw all the Oklahoma boys on Twitter talking about it, but I didn't get to watch it.
So one of my favorite Boone Pickens stories is a buddy of mine hung out with Boone one day, and it was a Saturday football game in Oklahoma, and it was a big win. And I forget what, this is 10, 15 years ago, but whatever the big win was back there, they beat Oklahoma, they beat whoever. So my buddy could barely keep up with Boone. And Boone was, 80 at the time, barely keep up with him, did all this. At the end of the night, it's whatever, it's midnight. He's walking out onto the stadium, and my buddy's with him. And my buddy goes, this was a big day for you. This was great. And he goes, it ain't over. He sees a football, picks it up, sprints 100 yards to the other end zone, and spiked the ball. And that's how Boone celebrated the big win.
You know my favorite Boone Pickens story? Now that we're on this topic, did y'all ever see that Boone Pickens and Drake conversation on Twitter?
Oh, that was the best. That was great.
So back in 2012, Drake, he tweets out, the first million is the hardest. And T Boone replies to him, says the first billion's a hell of a lot harder. And Drizzy comes back and says, Boone Pickens just stunned it on me heavy.
Okay, one last Boone Pickens story while we're here. So, Boone was married, 4 or 5 times, so obviously went through multiple divorces. Supposedly, if you were going through a divorce and you were in Boone's circle, he would call you up and say, all right, Chuck, you going through a divorce? Get your pen and your piece of paper out. And he would write down the playbook of what you did.
He would consult
Then you
you.
do this. Then you do that. Then you do that. By the way, transfer the money here as soon as you can. He had the whole thing.
How many times had he been divorced?
I mean, I guess
Enough to
3
go.
or 4. Enough to
handful.
be bitter about
Enough
it.
to have a playbook.
To have a playbook and be pissed off and willing to share it. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Dude, good. Just transitioning, good story here. I'm looking at Toby Rice's face, his mug on the
Looking at Toby Rice's face.
on Financial Times, but top U.S. gas producers as pipeline fights endanger industrial world. So he's lambasting the movement to cancel energy infrastructure. And what he said was, the article goes on to talk about how pipeline construction has just basically gone to zero.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest threat to U.S. energy independence and security. But talking about how, he's the biggest gas producer and his gas assets are stranded if they can get more pipelines up.
Like pre you two guys coming on BDE, Colin and I actually talked about this. One of the most influential things that happened in the energy business that's underreported. Biden came in. Biden got to nominate for the swing vote on the FERC, a Democrat.
Yeah.
And they changed the rules that had been in place for, call it 25 years, for approving projects to now they had to consider climate change. And it wasn't a relative consideration. You couldn't say, hey, if this pipeline's going to make it 73% better than the old leaky pipeline we're replacing, that was not the standard. It was not relative. It was absolute. So if you could look at a pipeline and said there's 0.001% of a leak of methane, we can deny that pipeline. Yeah, that was a big freaking deal that we're now seeing repercussions from this. And, back in the day, it was like, oh, this is no big deal, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Since 2016, 4 pipelines that have run, maybe connecting EQT's gas fields to the rest of the U.S. have been canceled.
Yeah.
Penn East, Constitution, Atlantic Coast, and Northeast Direct.
But you know what's crazy? It's not even just oil and gas pipelines. Like I saw Safari Club had protested, shut down a pipeline. I want to say it was Tallgrass, but I can't remember. But it was a CO2 pipeline for CO2 sequestration. And the operator of the pipeline's like, we're not even an oil pipeline.
or that controversial EOR
Yeah.
that you commented on a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, what was that? Oh, yeah, that was a lady
the,
from
Washington Post.
Washington Post. Yeah. What is she? Man.
Let's go just dial up.
We've only been
Collide
injecting.
Pro. We'll figure it out right now.
Yeah, I wish I would have. Yeah, see, I got to scroll through my Twitter feed. This is
guys.
archaic as hell. But yeah, so this lady from Washington Post writes this piece about here it is right here. Shannon Osaka from Washington Post. And the headline of this says, companies capture a lot of CO2. Most of it's going into new oil. And the subheader is, the government is still funding the controversial practice of enhanced oil recovery. Anyways, I know this lady had it she'd posted this 4 days before I retweeted it, and it had no likes or anything. And then I retweeted it, and she just kind of started getting
First commercial scale CO2 flood.
Yeah.
Where?
And
Where was it?
72.
19?
Sac Rock. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
72.
Nice.
Scurry.
Yeah.
And her tweet said, oil and
I'll
gas.
also take things that made Kinder Morgan for $500, please.
She said in her tweet, oil and gas companies are capturing an estimated 18 million metric tons of CO2 every year in the U.S., but most of it's still going into new oil. I don't think she knows what that actually means. Like, oil and gas companies are capturing an estimated 18 million
It's just
metric
it's
tons.
not new
Like,
oil. It's just oil that was immobile, and then you mobilized it.
but she'd also, like, in the article put, like, I don't know, like something around drilling, drilling oil. And it's like this, you don't use CO2 or EOR is not the drilling. It's
Yeah, I mean, the purposing of CO2 for enhanced recovery, it just goes to show you that the, the mission or the narrative has changed from mitigating emissions to keep it in the ground. Right.
Yeah.
Did you see my follow-up tweet to that?
Yeah.
So I was looking, was trying to find somewhere in Houston that has a DEXA body scanner, so I can go get a DEXA scan. And anyways, there's this health clinic down the road. Anyways, I was just like looking on their website, and one of their services that they're promoting is CO2 lift vaginal rejuvenation.
Whoa.
And using CO2 injections for, I mean, you can go do your own research, but it's like these CO2 injection schemes are. If someone's not trading carbon credits on the back of that, they're messing up.
No doubt. I mean, what's interesting though, we're talking about the.
I was told,
well, that's like that 18-wheeler driving the wrong way on the Katy Freeway right there.
I was told no uncertain terms that I should not comment on such stories. So,
You've been hanging around the good people, Chuck. What's weird though,
Well, it's a good thing that London showed up on Southwest flight routes, right?
Yes.
Has to be, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't go.
nice.
What's interesting though is we've got this, pipeline mania. You've got Toby on one side, this side of the pond complaining, but on the other side, Rishi Sunak is about to unveil that the North Sea is moving to an annual oil and gas licensing bill. So he's making it easier for UK-based firms to actually get drilling permits in the North Sea. This is, it's definitely political in the UK ahead of the UK general election, but that's actually interesting that the UK is moving more to make it easier for drilling permits.
Well, it comes under, I think, the theme of barrels produced domestically are going to be cleaner, have a lower carbon footprint. We make that same argument for Canada versus Venezuela. Barrels in the U.S. have a lower carbon footprint than other less savory places in the world. So I think using
as
that
well as their point, because the new prime minister has been talking about this is a burden on poor people by making hydrocarbons more expensive. He's made that point several times.
Well, you're going to economics. He's going to to climate. And the question is, does that mean you can put net zero on your Raptor? I'm gonna go steal that license plate and put it on Mark's car.
But
there have been other license plates pasted on over.
you just do what everyone else does and just buy junk
I do have a
carbon
vanity
credits
plate.
that like don't actually mean anything, and then claim being net zero.
Using Ethereum, I'm gonna buy some carbon credits on Ethereum.
But I mean, if you look at North Sea production, there is a noticeable difference between UK North Sea
And Norway,
Norway, yeah, and it's all policy driven, right? It's not
Absolutely.
It's not rock driven. So
Yeah, that's interesting though to see that he's had those comments and now essentially removing some of the friction for drilling.
There's
It's
other
refreshing.
There's other
I like
friction,
seeing that.
but
all right, did I make you mad by cutting you off, Mark? I'm sorry.
no.
Oh, okay. just checking.
He's just mad you came back from your board meeting so quick.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just worried about your other directors who might be looking for your wisdom.
I said one.
They're set up for failure if they're looking for wisdom from him in the first place.
Wow.
Ooh, that's
Wow.
brutal.
Do we have anything else on the show? It's kind of a slow like slow.
Well,
week
another
and
article
energy.
hit this weekend about YL again, my boy YL at Shell. He's backing a leaner operation.
Shell's got to hate Kirk being on this show. We've talked about Shell more.
We were talking about Shell way too much, but it's an interesting
No way.
dynamic. Oh, yeah, we've talked.
Our guy AL is playing 4D chess. He's leaking things through Kirk to put out.
We've talking ExxonMobil. We've talked Chevron. We've talking Independence. We've talked. Well, we don't really talk BP all that often. We don't talk Total as much as we should, but Shell's interesting because they're sort of the European bellwether that's trying to make their way back to the U.S. And their stock price is actually trading near highs. So interesting. YL is cleaning ship over there, and he's actually reducing their budget for clean things, but focusing those clean investments towards things that they can do well, such as like they're the largest, one of the largest in transportation. So they're going to invest because they move more things around the world on the ocean than just about anybody else. They're focused on, carbon capture, things that are in their wheelhouse versus running a retail shop in the UK, which they're selling, or Sonnen, which they bought, the home storage battery company in Germany. They're going to sell that. It sounds like he's just trying to right the ship and put it on a path for being lean, because he's really needing to catch up to the U.S.-based companies that are playing chess or tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, and he also said, though, that, in response to our discussion, I'm sure, of which he heard about conjecture as to what Shell was going to have to do in response to Chevron and Exxon doing
and just for the
watershed
record,
deals.
I don't think he actually listens to our show. He has, from my sources, he does get an update on what every show is, summary of the show.
So that's your Sunday night call.
Yeah.
Oh.
If he's going to do that, can I say one thing to him? Please do not enter the United States by paying people to carry. I mean, come on. I mean, good grief. You can just go buy something.
Go buy something.
Dude, he lived in Houston, man. He rolls, bro.
Okay.
So you mentioned the word leaning, or the term leaning up. What does that mean overall?
It means he's reducing the budget for. They had an annual budget target for sort of what was used to be called new energies. I think he's going to be cut. He moved new energies under downstream, which seems to make sense to me. I'm sure it pisses off a lot of people inside the company, but I think he's trying to put the company in a position that's great for dividends. And actually, they just announced again some more buybacks. So it sounds to me he's trying to be capital disciplined. Leaning up is reducing budget.
Like leaning, reducing staff.
That's true. They are
got it by
leaning,
meaning got it. Okay.
Reducing budget, which also means people.
I was trying
to be like.
And just one comparative in that regard. Exxon's almost 2x market cap.
Yeah.
With 62,000 employees, and Shell has 90,000.
I mean, bro, they had me on the payroll, and I was
famous Kirk quote I recall from a podcast with Colin and Jake was talking about your Shell experience.
And what was the quote?
The quote was, I'm not sure the culture can survive me.
Oh, shit.
Oh, God, that's awesome.
I'm going to look that up on Clyde Pro real quick.
Man, oh shit.
Pull that clip.
delete.
All right, we did have one thing.
But just to button this up, I do, in all seriousness, I think it points out a pretty stark contrast in the way the European majors have had to, or have chosen to, approach transition and portfolio shift, right? BP was very early out paying big bonuses for UK offshore wind leases, for example.
Right.
Shell had committed, I don't know what the total capital is to the renewable business, but those are much larger early stage commitments than Exxon and Chevron did. And one of the things that Darren Woods, at least I think I heard in the Q&A, was, the way I interpret it is, we're going to let the markets develop in these areas before committing. Because if you go look at their low carbon businesses and the spend, right, and the focus of those, we're letting those markets develop to the point where we have, some clarity on returns.
I mean, I met with Exxon multiple times when I was at Shell because we were like, hey, get in the venture business because it's a great way to lose money. And they all looked at me. They're very smart. Like, we have scouts. We're going to look at stuff. We're going to do projects with technology if it makes sense for us. But I think Exxon's just being very cautious and very smart with their capital. I'm going to say it.
Yeah. I mean, you look at drilling in the Permian Basin, Exxon very late to the game. Let the independents figure out how to drill horizontally, frack it, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, they did
something to be said.
They did buy one in 2010 for $26 billion.
Well, that's true. That's the downside of watching for too long.
Yeah. But that's what Exxon has. They have a lot of capital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, real quick, music front. David Lee Roth and John Five, the new guitar player for Motley Crue, got his start being part of David Lee Roth's band. They recorded a ton of music together back in like 2006, 2007, and it's kind of just been in the vault ever since, because David Lee Roth was writing for new Van Halen stuff, writing solo stuff, all that. It's starting to trickle out. There have been a couple of the songs released. They released one this weekend, and the lyrics to the song are, "I want the shit that killed Elvis." And it's talking about all this partying and all this great stuff. It's awesome. So go look that up. David Lee Roth, "I want the shit that kills Elvis." Send the link to us,
and let's also send the link on the show.
There we go. Perfect.
In the realm of music in the NFL, there's a great meme I saw this morning, and it was Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift walking hand in hand, and the caption was, "Taylor Swift taking her new album out for a walk."
That's funny.
Classic.
All right, guys. Well, it was good to pick the show back up after Fuze. Appreciate everyone tuning in and listening this week. Anything important to remind people of? I don't think so, huh?
Tune in.
Coming up. Tuning in. Share. Yeah, I told the story about Kirk being surprised that people were walking up to him at Fuze and being like, "I watch your show." And Kirk's like, "I didn't think anyone actually fucking watched this thing." So appreciate y'all sharing the show. We will catch y'all next week.